I want to do a quick video, just model roster update. I haven't done these in a while, and they don't really get a lot of views, but whatever. I want to make a new video. I just cleaned my whole workbench, everything, and it's like kind of inspiring to want to do something, because it's really nice to have a nice clean workspace. And anyway, I have two Berkshires here. I'll start with this one, I guess. This is the 718. I did a weathering video on this engine, but you can see since I've done that video, if you've watched that video recently or if you're familiar with it, I've changed a couple things on it. I redid some of the weathering. Most notably, I blacked out the white stripe and did some work along the wheels, just a general overall touch-up. But anyway, this is an MTH Berk, and I didn't really touch on this too much in the weathering video when I worked on this engine. But I purchased this engine off of eBay back in like February for a pretty good price. And I've talked about before, I'm not a big fan of the MTH Berkshire tooling. I think it lacks in a lot of ways, especially when compared to the Lionel Berk, like what this one is. But I had the idea a while ago of buying an MTH Berk and then replacing a lot of the parts that I feel like don't help it, like, you know, kind of make it fumble a little bit as far as looks go. And that's what I did here. So this is I replaced the headlight, the Mars light, number boards, bell, all on the front end. I also replaced the whistle for a Lionel part, and I also swapped out the feed water heater for a brass part. And I did all of that because those were the parts on the engine that I felt lacked the most. So the headlight and the Mars light, as well as the number boards, are all Lionel, and the whistle too. They're all Lionel detail parts. The headlight actually really wasn't that bad. In fact, the headlight lives on in this engine. We'll talk about it a little bit. But the headlight swapped out. The Mars light, the Lionel Mars light is, the MTH Mars light is just weirdly proportioned. It's like too long. Like the whole body like goes like straight into the boiler front, which is weird and incorrect, and it just looks weird. So I swapped that out. Number boards as well were also, again, just very awkwardly shaped and real weirdly mounted. You can see the Lionel, they're like a 5-sided or 4-sided. They have like kind of angled a little bit. You can see over here. On the MTH one, the stock look, it's just like curved all the way around. It was very strange. So I replaced those. The bell was oversized and the mount was wrong. So this is actually it's an MTH bell I pulled off of another engine. It's the correct style, which was the biggest thing I wanted. It has the old, like the fabricated with the bell yoke mount, so you can see like that. So that's how it should be for the 718. So it looks a lot better. Then I also went ahead and added a whole bunch of super detailing on the front. You see all the wires coming into that junction box up there. And I showed this in the 718 when I worked on the 718, but it's the same, or sorry, the 770, the detailing video I did. It's the same thing here. The number plate here is scratch built. It's made out of styrene. It's a correct 5-sided number plate. The original one was just the rectangular size that I put on, or I made it, painted it, and decaled it, which looks pretty good. I also added up here, I added the, what is this, the hot water pump alarm, or the hot water pump, excuse me, exhaust, the hot water pump exhaust. You can see it over here. It's made out of the wire coming up along the side of the boiler, or along the side of the smoke box and connecting up to the, or coming up there, right ahead of the stack. And I also added, excuse me, let's move that. I also added a 3D printed, well, I didn't make it, my brother made it, but it's a 3D printed low water alarm as the MTH one, or the stock MTH engine lacks in that. It lacks in that, doesn't have the low water alarm, it's just not there. I also rerouted the whistle cord, so you see here, it comes off the whistle, runs through the top of the sand dome, and then runs down into the cab that way. That's correct for an S1 Berkshire, so it's a nice little prototype touch. I also have a whole bunch of wiring you can see coming down off of the side. This is for the bell, so it comes down off of the bell and runs, goes back to the cab that way. So overall, this engine looks a lot better. The biggest improvement, I think, definitely was the feed water heater. The old feed water heater was like half the size and it looked horrible. So having that on here really enhances the look of the engine quite a bit. And this engine is honestly one of my favorite engines I have. It's a really fun project. It's like a good passion project almost. I really enjoyed working on this engine. And the MTH Berk is actually a pretty decent base model for either an Alco S-Class or one of the S1 classes. For the primary reason is that the stock engine lacks the air pump exhaust, which you see over here in the Lionel. This is the air pump exhaust coming down that way. It's not on the MTH one, which if you want to model an S2 or an S3, it's going to be a problem, but it's not for the either the S-Class or the S1 that does not have the air pump exhaust, or at least not in the location that it's on, the S2 and the S3. So it's a pretty good base model. It does have a few faults for an S1, which it should only have 4 sand lines here instead of 6, and it has a roller bearing truck instead of a friction bearing truck, but whatever, I can look past that. It's close enough, and you know, it's a pretty nice engine. I would not be against doing this again on another engine, another MTH Berk, if I can get one for another good price. You know, getting another or modeling another S or S1 class, because these are, I don't know, in the area that I'm modeling on the east end of the nickel plate in the later years of Steam in my era 57, these were pretty common on the east end, so it's pretty nice to have, and it's a really good engine, nicely detailed. Okay, moving over, so you'll just move this back a little bit. Just get it out of the way. Moving over here is an engine that might look a little bit familiar, because I have touched on this engine before in the past. This here is the 742, and this is a Lionel Berkshire that I've basically been continuously working on since I got it back in, what, September of 2020, so over 2.5 years ago, almost 3 years ago. It's been a passion project. I bought this engine, again, about 3 years ago. I really wanted a Lionel Berkshire, and my store only had an RF&P one. So I was like, whatever, I'll just buy this one. I really want a nickel plate one, but RF&P will suffice. So I bought it, and continuously did some modifications on it. It's had a whole bunch of different looks over the years, but I think this is the final look. You know, I've been continuously modifying it. For a while, I had it like sort of done, but just recently I went back and I actually scratch built this plow pilot out of brass and styrene. Came out really good. I don't do much complete, you know, scratch building like I did here. So, and I was pleasantly surprised with myself with how nicely this came out. Again, it's made of brass and styrene. It's pretty simple construction. I had to pull off the old pilot and just glue this right in place, but it looks pretty good. And it's unique with 742. It's correct, and the plow pilot's a neat look for the Berk. I almost like it better than like this has the slatted pilot like on the 718. I almost like this look better. Moving up, the headlight is also a replacement headlight. It didn't really need to be a replacement, but the original headlight that this engine came with was just kind of beat up. Wasn't too happy with how it looked, you know, after this had gone through a couple different iterations, and the headlight did not suffice well through that. So the headlight, ironically, is actually the headlight that I replaced with the Lionel headlight on the MTH Berk. So it's actually an MTH headlight. And, you know, I wasn't too happy with it on the Lionel Berk. I just didn't think it looked very good. But now with it on this Lionel Berkshire, I think it's just the fact that it was surrounded by other poor detail parts that made it look bad. So having it on this engine, I think it looks pretty good. It has a scratch built number plate on it. It's also like a 718 mounted in the shelfless configuration. The Mars light I added, doesn't function, but this engine didn't come with a Mars light, it's RF&P, so I added this Mars light to the Lionel piece, and you see it has all the extra little detailing. Behind it there you see all the wiring detail, as well as all up on the front of the engine, just like on the 718, this has all the extra wiring detail. The class lights are the class lights off of the 718's tender. The Lionel class lights are too big, and they have the green lenses, so they light up green. And I usually paint the lenses silver, but they still light up green. So I just pulled them off. I stuffed the bulbs inside the boiler and plugged the holes. So these don't light up. I don't really care. They look nice, and they look much more correctly scaled. And it also helps not have any of this big wire, the light wire coming through, so I can have all this little extra detail, and it looks a lot better. Added the number boards, decaled the number boards. The only fault with this engine on the front end, at least, and this is the rivet counter in me, is the bell is wrong. It should have this style bell, like the original USRA looking yoke mount, or the bell yoke and cradle. This has the more fabricated bell mount that some of the S3s had, and some of the replacement Berks had, as they came in for rack replacement or whatever, they have this fabricated bell mount. So if I ever get another Berkshire that has the fabricated, or not fabricated, the original bell mount, I'll just swap it out with this engine, so this will have the correct bell mount. So we'll call that temporary right now. Aside from that, I didn't really change too much on the rest of the engine, aside from some weathering. And I also added the whistle pull cord going back up. You see over here, it goes over top the sand dome, which is correct for an S2, versus through the sand dome on an S1. I also replaced the pilot truck. It had the inside bearing pilot truck, so it didn't have anything. It was just a wheel. I swapped that out. Again, another rivet counter issue here. This has a friction bearing pilot truck, and it should have a roller bearing pilot truck. I tried to swap out the pilot trucks between this one and this one, because they really should be switched. But unfortunately, the Lionel and the MTH toolings aren't transferable, so you can't swap the pilot trucks out. And of course, Lionel's out on their parts website of the roller bearing pilot truck. But I don't know, maybe if they ever rerun these, I'll snag one there on the parts website once they become available. But, you know, aside from that, the engine's pretty much stock. I haven't really changed too much on it, you know, aside from re-decaling and weathering. And, but, you know, this engine looks completely different from how it did when I got it. And looks a lot better, too. I don't really care about the RFP at all. So if you want an RFP Berkshire, sorry, not sorry, cope. This looks better. And I have my eyes on some other different, you know, not nickel plate road names I like to redo for nickel plate in these Lionel Berks. So I'm ready to make all the collectors cry when I redo a 1225 next. But yeah, these are my two most recent models, or some of my, well, yeah, I guess these are my two most recent ends I've been working on and completed and such. They look really good. I'm up to 4 scale Berkshires now, 3 of which are Lionel, and then I have the lone MTH one. My goal is to have 5, so I'm one away, and I have my sights set on one, so hopefully we'll do that. And I also have a 765. I'm thinking about redoing in another in-service Berk, you know, like one of these, but we'll see what happens with that. But anyway, that's about it for now. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.